Hello my crafty friends, this is Monica from Allsewpetite. In this tutorial I will show you how to make those lovely coasters. This is a fantastic scrap buster project and a perfect opportunity to practice sewing bias binding around the curves. If you are interested in learning how to make those coasters, then keep on watching. To make your coaster, you will need two pieces of fabric, one on the front and one on the back. So I'm using a quilting cotton type fabric today, which I already interfaced with woven interfacing. You want to make sure that the piece of your fabric is larger than the actual finished coaster. So I have a template here for my coaster, and I cut my squares slightly larger, so I have a slight room for an error. And to add stability to your coaster so it is not floppy, you may want to add fusible fleece as well. Then you will also need single fold bias binding. Mine is 18 millimeters wide. So to start, I'm going to fuse my fabric with fusible fleece first. Then you're going to take the other piece of fabric, and with wrong sides together we're going to place it on top. If you have a directional print on your fabric, make sure you arrange it in the same way. Otherwise, just place them on top, line them up, and you can just clip them around. Now you can take this to the machine and baste around all sides. Once you've got this basted, you can go ahead and quilt your coaster so it looks nice and pretty. When you have this ready, you're going to take your template and just trace it. Then you can just cut it out. Now you're going to take your single fold bias binding, and with right sides together you're going to unfold one edge and just align it around the edge of your coaster. Make sure you don't stretch it, just keep it nice and flat. Otherwise, when you stitch it in place, your coaster may not lay nice and flat. It may bunch out and the edges may turn up a little bit, which obviously you don't want. So make sure you keep your bias binding nice and flat. Now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to baste my binding in place using 7mm seam allowance. I have a separate video tutorial that shows you how to join two ends of your bias binding, so check that out in case if you need help. Here we go, it should look something like this. Then you're going to flip the bias binding around the raw edge to the other side of your coaster. Here we go. And then you can just line up that folded edge of your bias binding just beyond the stitching line. So I have the stitching line running all around the coaster and I don't want to see it. So I'm going to line up this folded edge here just beyond that stitching line. And you can just clip it in place. Here we go, just like that. So now you're going to take this to the machine and we're going to stitch the other side of the binding around the coaster. So you want to make sure you keep the previous stitching line hidden underneath your bias binding, and then you can stitch it about 2 millimeters from the edge. Make sure you keep it consistent so your stitching line looks nice on both sides.